Welcome to the Dream Journal from the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz. The Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with listeners like you. In the words of Carl Jung, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Today's music is called Curiosa. Thank you to Rick Kleffel for once again creating a musical backdrop. Exploring consciousness through lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, meditation, and more. Today we speak with Amina Mara of the Dream World podcast. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. We are also a weekly podcast. You can find out anywhere in podcast land. Please subscribe, rate, and review, since that spreads interest in dreaming. If people see the podcast, they might spend more time thinking about their dreams. And that's part of what I like about this show, is to get people interested in talking to their dreams. Talking to their dreams. Ooh, I like that. Talking about their dreams. Let's talk to them as well. Our guest today, I'll have more to say about that. Archives are available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also at ksqd.org/the-dream-journal. Let's get right to the guest. So I'd like to say hello to Amina Mara. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you. I'm happy to be here. It's very exciting.
Excellent. Always great to support another dream podcaster.
Yes. It's important work. I think talking about dreams is my favorite topic.
Okay, perfect. Me too. Amina Mara, MS, MFA, is a published author and lucid dream coach. With a background in psychology, she's determined to pave the way for this emerging field of research. Her content focuses on everything from OBEs, which is out-of-body experiences, advanced dreamwork practices, meditation, mindfulness, consciousness exploration, science, and all things spirituality. You can find her at thedreamworldpodcast.com. Amina, so good to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for the great introduction. I'm really honored to be here.
Yeah. So we have like a wide field of things to talk about, like lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences, consciousness exploration. Where do you want to start?
Wow. I mean, I don't even know where to start. It's been such a long journey for me.
Well, do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey first?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I mean, I've been a lucid dreamer my whole life. I've had lucid dreams since I was a child. I didn't really know the potential of them at first. I would just have nightmares, and then I would realize I'm dreaming, and I would wake up. But I've always been very interested in the subconscious and, you know, what is out there beyond physical reality. So I've always thought dreams are really cool. As I grew older, I started to have more interesting dreams and sleep paralysis and liminal experiences. So it's always been a huge part of my life that I've just learned to navigate. And so I studied psychology in college. And at the time, I didn't really see dreams as like something that I could pursue academically. I've always been passionate about it, but I always thought it was kind of more of a spiritual thing. Mm-hmm. So I went on and I got my master's in graphic design, and I even did my thesis there on lucid dreaming. Then I ended up going back to psychology once I got involved in IASD and just meeting dreamers and getting connected in the community. It just really grew from there. That's when I started a podcast, you know, got back into the field of just researching the subconscious and, you know, expanded my knowledge on that. And I started, you know, just getting involved. So now that's what I do. I teach lucid dreaming, and I talk about all the things related to that, and just create a platform like you to allow people to share their experiences.
Right. So you mentioned the IASD, that's the International Association for the Study of Dreams, which is a wonderful hub for people interested in dreaming, all the way from professionals to artists to clinicians to enthusiasts. Just really broad platform. And I find that my work around dreaming really took off when I got involved with the IASD as well. It's nothing like finding your tribe.
Yes, exactly. It's like I found people that just understood and were passionate about it.
So I wanted to ask about your podcast, because you have a focus that's a kind of a, is it, your focus is mostly on lucid dreaming. Is that right, on your podcast?
So yes and no. Like I
Okay.
talk about all things dream related on my podcast. My personal focus is lucid dreaming because that's what I like to teach and that's what I have the most experience in. But I have a lot of guests come on my podcast, and that's what I love, is that everybody has different skills within dream work, different, kind of field within that niche. So
Right.
it's a little more broad, but I
Okay.
do talk about lucid dreaming a lot.
Okay. So when you talk about coaching people to lucid dream, you're talking about how to have more lucid dreams. And I could be a case where I could use some coaching because over the years I've had a dozen or 20 lucid dreams or so, and I've tried various times to get serious about it, and I just have not found it to be very um, consistent or meaningful. Like I'll just get lucid in a dream and go, wow, my God, I'm lucid, and then I wake up, that,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, I teach people to have more lucid dreams and also to have longer lucid dreams and do more profound things in their lucid dreams. So it's different levels to it, from beginner to, people like you that have had lucid dreams and they just want to get more out of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, I'm thinking that maybe let's start off with, with some of the kind of profound lucid dreams that you've had, and then maybe later in the show we can go into sort of the basics of how to lucid dream, because I would say I've gone through a fair amount of that myself, and I'm sure, imagine a lot of our listeners have too, and they'll stay around if they want to hear more. But I wonder if you could just start by telling us some of the potential, like maybe sharing with us one or two of the dreams, well, lucid or not, that you have found to be powerful. Like what is, maybe you could share with us something,
Yeah.
experiences
Yeah.
you've had.
I've been looking at my dream journal all morning because it's so hard to pick of my favorite dreams, of my favorite lucid dreams. But there's always a few that come to mind that I love sharing. So I'll kind of, give some little snippets of like 2 or 3 of them that are somewhat related.
Yep.
So a lot of my lucid dreams, so I'll start with this one that I love sharing. I call it the lucid lesson because I was fully lucid and it was like such a long lucid dream. And one of the things I love doing is going around talking to dream characters and asking them advice and things about my life. And I always get interesting answers. So I'm with this one dream character and I feel like I know him, like he's one of my guides. And he's telling me all these like secrets of the universe about, life and spirituality, about, reincarnation and all these things. And this was like kind of before kind of all these new age topics started to come back up again and become popular again. So it was like a few years back. So we're going around the stream for what feels like hours, and they're telling me about my life and my podcast. I had just started the podcast and they played me some of my future episodes and told me to keep going. And it was very motivational in that sense. And in that dream, they start telling me all these secrets, and they have these huge TV screens where they're like watching any time and place on Earth. Like they can just switch the channel, like it's all happening at the same time live. Like they're watching the dinosaurs and then they're watching us right here doing this show. And then they go watch the future, things like that. So I'm like, wow, that's so cool. But I wasn't supposed to be there. They kind of told me like, lay low, human dreamers can't come in this area. This is where, the spiritual beings hang out. So then they kind of caught me and woke me up and shot me into another dream, which is another common thing that happens sometimes when I'm lucid. And so I've had similar lucid dreams like that where I'm talking to dream characters, and a lot of times I'll also do other fun things like create my dream life. Like I had this other lucid dream where I was flying around like The Sims, just creating like a farm and a dream retreat over here and like a big lake over here, just creating like my dream, little farm commune that I always go back to when I'm dreaming. So I have some persistent realms as well that I create and that are consistent throughout different dreams. So those are a few things that I love doing, and going into the future to see things and see if they happen and things like that.
It's interesting you bring up the idea of consistent realms, and that's something that I've experienced even as a non-lucid dreamer, that certain times in my life there have been certain places that I'll return to over and over again, and maybe I'm seeing like the other side of the mountain or, farther down the beach, but I know it's the same thing. It's the same place. And do you have any like sense of what that's all about?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, I really do believe that when we go into this dream realm, we're entering another realm, and there's a lot of different levels to it and different places you can go. And we can kind of set ourselves some mental markers for to be able to return to some of these places. And you can either create your own, or sometimes people will have, environments that seem like they're preloaded. So I kind of see it like a video game. You can just load in and explore.
Yeah, I have a ski mountain that has, a whole series of lifts and different parts to it, and I find myself on certain places of this. And skiing is something that's always been kind of meaningful to me. There's something about the feeling of swishing down the snow. Grew up in New England, so I had a lot more skiing. I didn't have to drive 6 hours like I do now to get there. But so there's a way that I haven't dreamt about it so much lately, but there were quite a few years when that was a consistent theme for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you feel like you improve at your certain skills when you're doing them in the dream?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, I know that there are people who advocate lucid dreaming to like literally practice things like backflips or the piano and things like that, or meditation even in a dream.
Yeah, exactly. I've meditated in a dream too a few times. It's always interesting. But I love doing things that I can't do in waking life, like skateboarding and doing all these fun flips. I've been skiing in a dream before, and I'm way better in the lucid dream than I am in waking life.
Right. Now, you also talked about asking dream characters for advice. And I've heard this thing about lucid dreaming where they say that certain characters are just kind of like filler people, and then there's other characters that are more profound. And yet when I work with a dream, I find that all the characters have something valuable to say. Do you have like certain characters that you go to, or how do you know who to talk to, I guess is what I'm saying?
Yeah, over the years, I've kind of learned how to differentiate. And I can either tell by talking to a dream character, their responses will either be very shallow, or they'll literally just mimic back what I'm thinking, like I'm projecting my thought onto whatever they're going to say next. And I can tell when it's happening. And then there will be some dream characters that are just so profound, and they know so much more than I do, it seems. And sometimes I'll actively seek them either by saying like, bring me a dream guide or a spirit guide, or, some sort of higher entity, whatever I feel like calling on in that moment. And then it'll appear most of the time, like 9 out of 10 times.
Oh, well.
If not every time. Yeah, I can't think of a time where I haven't been able to do that.
And what about certain guides? Do you go back to the same guide sometimes?
Yes, a lot of times. And it's usually I can recognize them by energy. They don't always look the same, but I'll have like a dream memory from another dream where I was talking to them or something like that.
Okay. Do you want to share with us in some of your dream guides, or who what?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few. So there was one in particular that I remember after this long, profound lucid dream that I was having, where I was just exploring, and then I get to the end, and there's all these babies and children around, and I'm like, this isn't relevant to the dream guide part. But anyway, I scream out like, oh, where's my dream guide or spirit guide, I said. And then I hear a honk from over this fence. So I jump over the fence, and there's like a Asian woman presenting character sitting in this like car, and she's like, yeah, I'm your dream guide, like I'm one of your spirit guides, I watch you all the time, I'm an alien, I'm from this alien race, but I always watch you, you have a show. I don't know if the show was like my life or like a show in the future, who knows, but she was a big fan. And then I had another one too, which I think was the same one, maybe not, but I remembered her, and I tried to find her again, but I couldn't find her, but I had my phone in the dream, so I was talking to her on my phone in the dream. And in that dream, I remembered it as the same lady, and she was telling me things. She was like, yeah, ask me anything. I was asking her, like, what are my past lives? Like, what do I do about this situation? Just anything that I could think of in the moment that came to my mind that I wanted to know. She was like telling me things. So she's nice. I like her. Her name was Valeria too. I don't know if I said that.
Valeria. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. The idea about some of these characters being like external to who we are. Like this is something I've wondered about even in regular dreams, because I do find guides tend to show up in regular dreams, and often I just kind of run right past them, and pay no attention. But they're there, and I do feel like that these characters are sometimes outside of myself. Like you specifically mentioned. From another planet, I think you said alien, and and there's also like wonder like little bits of divinity, or just things that are outside of myself. And what is your sense of that? Like they're not all projections, all those characters, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a firm believer of that, and everybody might see it differently, but from my experience, dreams are built by so much more than just our subconscious mind. Like there are some external forces, and sometimes I think those higher forces might be like my higher self or like a more advanced spiritual version of me. If you believe that we're all connected, anyways. But I definitely believe that there are higher powers supporting me, my ancestors as well, and souls that are not physically alive with me on the physical plane, but they're still supporting me from the other side. So they use my dreams as a way to like guide me. And I definitely feel that like dreams have given me things that I couldn't have figured out myself. So.
That's very interesting. And so these characters, these kind of external forces, these external characters, is this something that we can only access them because we're asleep? Like, or are they there when we're awake and we're just not so tuned into that level of consciousness? Do you have any sense of that?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think that it is always there. We're just entering a version of ourselves that's more aware, and have this expanded view, so the universe becomes more available to us, but it's always there. I've had dream characters tell me like, yeah, this is my life. Even when you're sleeping, I'm still here living my life, and things like that. So yeah, I definitely think it's always happening. And I think even aside from sleep, people can access these realms through like meditation or hypnosis. Like there's other ways as well. Dreams is just kind of like one method.
Right. Okay. Oh, that is very cool. So I also wanted to ask about death. I mean, do you think that we're going to access these kind of realms that we access in our sleep after we die, or do you think there's like a parallel between? I know the Tibetan dream yogis talk about that when we're dreaming, that we're practicing for dying, and I wonder if you have any insight from your explorations into that.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I do agree with that. I think that it's kind of practicing for entering these realms beyond, our physical. And I've died in my dreams so many times, so I know what it feels like. I've had so many different types of deaths, and it's always interesting. And I'm not scared of death because of my lucid dreams. They've prepared me. I'm ready. I mean, it makes me appreciate my life, of course, but it's not something that I fear. And I think a lot of people will get that way from lucid dreaming. So yeah, I think that it's kind of like these spiritual realms. There may be different levels to it, but I think like dreaming is kind of like a precursor to wherever we go after,
Yeah. So something was floating through my brain. Where'd it go? Yeah. So yeah, I think the death thing is a very interesting idea, because it's something that we all are going to experience one day, and but we haven't yet. I mean, certainly in dreams, it happens, and I would say it's happened to me occasionally, not super frequently. Like usually in my dreams, it's other people or things that die. It's not so often myself, which is interesting now that I speak that out loud. So there's and we have this saying in my dream groups that death in the dream world is a kind of sign of transformation, and how that ties in with like the physical death of the body, which is, they say I'm not scared of dying, but I'm scared of what it's going to feel like to get there, like the painful part of it to get there, and how long it might take, and. So that's like a different question, I guess. But maybe with our guides we can have the fortitude to get through even those painful parts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, death in dreams is interesting, and a lot of times it's not literal,
Yeah.
It could have an array of different meanings. But I've also heard a lot of stories of like people that are older and they're actually, in hospice or whatever, and they kind of use their dreams, maybe not even intentionally, but to kind of prepare themselves for death, or live, like, let's say if they can't move the same anymore, they might be dancing and singing in their dreams and kind of ending their life with this joyful transition. So it's kind of like a buffer period between the physical and wherever else we go.
I'm just preparing some shows for replays because I'm going to be traveling to Europe in June, and one of the shows that I'll be broadcasting is Jean van Bronckhorst, who has this who tells about her experiences of lucid dreaming during which she is companioning people as they die.
Yes, that's who I was thinking of when I mentioned that. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's great.
Yeah. So that show will come on, I think it's the 22nd of June or so. I'm just editing that show and getting it ready. So there is something about the parallels between dreaming and death and access. Have you ever had an experience like that of like having a dream of being with someone when they were dying?
Interesting. Yes, actually. So my dog, he was 17, and he passed in January.
Sorry.
And it was actually like, yeah, he was very old. So we knew that it was coming. And we were kind of at that point where we were debating, like, should we put him down? Like, do we just let nature do its thing? But he was very much like suffering, you know? So I ended up deciding like, okay, if I dream tonight, I'm going to ask him in my dream and like, you know, kind of see what he has to say or what he wants us to do. And sure enough, I had a dream, and I was cleaning up his poop in the front yard. I wasn't lucid. I was just cleaning up his poop, and it felt like for the last time. And in that dream, he told me like, oh, yeah, I'm ready. I'm just waiting on you guys to be ready, like my family and I. And so I woke up from that dream, and I just knew like, okay, I think we can put him down. Like it's more, you know, it's the right thing to do. So that helped me kind of get through it.
Right. So I mean, I had an experience. My father passed away this fall, and I flew out and was there for a couple of weeks before he died to help my mom and just to be with him. And you know, the nurses were all saying like he's getting pretty close, but it got later and later, and they suggested we go back to my mom's place, which was just upstairs at the senior housing place, and so me and my mother went back upstairs and I fell asleep like really suddenly, really deeply, and just about 20 minutes later, I got the phone call from my younger brother who was downstairs that he had passed, and it like he must have passed like right about the time I fell asleep, and my mom also fell asleep, and maybe he just needed us to give him a little space or something. It was interesting, that experience. Wow. Yeah, and I didn't remember a thing when I woke up. It was very deep sleep. I was just like out, but it felt pretty deep, and I was really just really touched by that experience.
Yeah, I think dreams is like a space where people that pass can come in and visit and check in on us. They kind of like pass through as they're, you know, progressing. So makes sense.
Yeah. So I happened to listen to a recent podcast that you did, and there was a conversation that you guys had about that death is the thing that only humans experience. There was like this phrase that kind of went through, and I'm like, what?
Who said that?
Oh, it was the Australian who was on your most recent podcast, I think. I don't remember her. Bryn, that's it.
Oh, Bryn.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, it was just like there's something about this, like, and that we can. I don't know. Yep. It's. I may have just even misheard what she said, because it sounded like that humans only experience dying, and that's something that's going to change eventually.
Interesting. I'll have to go back and listen to exactly what she said.
Okay, she said a lot. Oh my goodness, there was so much there that of course you can't focus on everything that she said, but it really struck me, and to talk about the connection between death and dreaming with you, and I know that. Your experiences are not the same as your guests, of course.
Right, yeah. I can't speak on exactly what she meant, but I mean, I do think that everybody dreams, and I mean, everybody that's alive will eventually die, but I don't know, like, I do think that death is not really death. Like, it's just a transition, you know,
right.
To a different kind of life. So we don't ever really die.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just our bodies.
Yeah, that's certainly been my experience. I've had the blessing to be with two different people, not counting my father, but two other people when the moment that they passed away, that they died, and it was definitely felt like a change, not an end, but a change. Yeah. And even there's something about falling asleep, that there's like a little mini death. We have to surrender our control, surrender our consciousness, and let go and move into this whole other realm. That is a kind of a transformation. It's something that we need every day. Dreaming and sleeping are extremely important to humans, even if we don't really know what goes on during that time.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time asleep, you know, and that's kind of what fascinated me. It's like, I don't want to just be blacked out and not remember this whole third of my life, you know?
Yeah. It's so true. It's something that's very important, and yet it's very different from the conscious mind. So,
Yeah.
it seems like a small point, but this is something I've always been curious about. That, I know that when we're awake, there's parts of our brain, like the prefrontal cortex, that are really active. And that part of the brain rests when we're sleeping, and yet when there's lucid dreaming, that part of the brain lights up again. The prefrontal cortex, the part of thinking,
Yeah.
planning, judging. And I've often wondered, does lucid dreaming get tiring? Like, does your brain not get a chance to rest while you're dreaming?
I get that question a lot, and everybody's different. But for me, no, I feel refreshed even when I wake up from a lucid dream, and I love it. And I guess it depends on the frequency and intensity of the lucid dream. Most people are not that frequent lucid dreamers. So for most people, it probably won't be that exhausting.
Right.
But I can't speak for everybody, because a lot of people do say, like, oh, I felt like I was just doing conscious work all night in my dreams. But, yeah, it's interesting. The brain activity in a lucid dream is very similar to when we're awake, but our brains are still active in general when we're sleeping. So it's not like shut off by any means.
That's
But yeah, I guess it just depends on how intense the dream is. But me personally, I love it.
Okay. Great. Well, this is fabulous conversation. This is Amina Mara of the Dream World podcast, and we're going to take a short break and come right back, and we're going to talk some more about, lucid dreaming and any other topics you might be interested in introducing. And also after the break, I want to get into some specifics about suggestions for lucid dreaming, like how can you do more lucid dreaming? How can you get started with the practice? I'd like to call on your coaching experience to really get some folks started, including maybe me. Maybe I'll get into lucid dreaming more too.
Yeah, I'm happy to help and give tips.
Fabulous. So this is the Dream Journal, and we are live at KSQD Studios in Santa Cruz, and we are co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU, and we'll be right back. Utterly unique and deeply compelling. This is a show not just to be heard, but experienced too. Host Catherine Bell is both dynamic and deeply intelligent. Her questions open up the guests and cause a listener to reflect inside too. The call-ins are awesome. Give the show a listen and learn from it. Thank you, Lender Suspenders. Thank you so much for leaving this review on iTunes. Promoting the Dream Journal is promoting the idea of people paying attention to their dreams. So I do appreciate that review. Next week, we will welcome Nana Fofi Bashir, who will be speaking about dreams that offer portals to ancestral and indigenous wisdom. So you might want to tune in for that. That's our last live show before I leave for the conference. I'll be gone for 3 weeks, and I have curated 3 fabulous replay shows for you during June. All right, welcome back to the Dream Journal. Today's guest is Amina Mara of the Dream World podcast, and we are talking about lucid dreaming, mindfulness, meditation, and the exploration of consciousness. We haven't really said too much about consciousness, Amina. I wonder if you'd like to say, what do you actually mean by that, and how does lucid dreaming help you explore that?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's such an array of states of consciousness and ways to experience reality. And lucid dreaming is just one of those states, like right now when we're present, fully consciously aware, even in our waking life, we can be fully lucid or we can just be on autopilot, not paying attention. And that's all about how consciously aware are you of your surroundings. And so that transcends, our physical body, because when we're in a dream, same thing. Are you consciously aware that it's a dream, or are you just going through the motions and following the story without that greater awareness? So I think we can have that spectrum in both states, both awake and asleep. So consciousness is such an interesting thing, and it's something that I just love studying.
Well, certainly, even while awake, there's a whole range of consciousness, from like fully alert and focused down to kind of drowsy and not quite paying attention.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
interesting to think of it as it's kind of a continuum. I mean, there is kind of a break of awake versus sleep, perhaps, but in each of those states there is a continuum.
Yes, exactly. And I think they're parallel to each other. The more aware you are in your waking life, the more, awareness you're likely to have in dreams.
Now, I've heard this interesting thing that people who are avid video gamers are more likely to be lucid dreamers too. Have you heard this?
Yes, and it's true. There has been some research on it, and I've played some video games myself, and I can realize why. Because, when you're in a lucid dream, it's very similar to like a fully immersive VR video game. You're fully there. You know that this is like a different little world or dimension, and you're making these choices that progress the storyline of the dream. And in a video game, it's the same thing. You're playing this character, and you're making these decisions, and you know that it's not your waking life, but you're in this story. And I've played video games, and when I started, I would have dreams where I'm either like doing certain video game mechanics or like moving around like I do in a video game, and it actually has helped my lucid dreams. So yeah, it definitely makes sense. It's kind of like a similar kind of mental process.
Oh, interesting. So, I mean, I hate to advocate playing more video games, but that could be one way to train lucid dreaming, perhaps.
Yeah, it could be.
Maybe somebody will create a video game that's specifically aimed at enhancing lucid dreaming.
Yeah, there's been a few, and they're not that popular, but I've heard of people that are interested in doing that.
Okay. Well, I wonder if you want to get into some nuts and bolts, Amina, and talk about like what are some of your most important recommendations for people to start a lucid dreaming practice or to deepen it?
Yeah, people have probably heard this a lot, but it's true. Start a dream journal. Start by just writing down all your dreams, because it starts there, and beyond that, you'll start to notice patterns in your dreams, maybe certain objects or environments or themes or feelings that come up often over the course of like, a few months or weeks. And then you can use those dream signs to kind of practice doing little mental state checks in your waking life. Some people call them reality checks. And this is one thing that I advocate a lot for lucid dreaming. And it's, different things work for different people. So it's really about trying out different things and finding what works for you. But the concept behind reality checks is just stopping to think in your waking life, am I dreaming right now or am I awake? And just training your brain to question the state that you're in. And ideally, when you see dream signs that show up often in your dream, like if you dream of your cat a lot or the bathroom, every time you see that dream sign in your waking life, you do this reality check. And so eventually the idea is that you'll do it in a dream and lead you to realize that you're dreaming.
Okay.
But I also tell people to just, try out. There's so many different techniques for lucid dreaming. So just experiment.
Okay. I mean, there's all these crazy wake back to sleep ones, which, as a kind of tentative sleeper myself, I just want to go back to sleep. I don't want to have to wake up in the middle of the night. So I like the dream signs idea because it's something I can practice in the waking world. So what's next? So like once you are in a lucid dream, like how do you stay in the lucid dream and not pop yourself up to wake again? And
yeah. So before you even get in the dream, it's good to have a plan. So like, what do you want to do in the lucid dream? And like visualize it before you go to sleep, as you're setting intentions, which is one method that I always tell people, is think about it as you're going to sleep. And whatever your dream plan is, the more you kind of think about how it's going to go, then the more when you get lucid, you'll remember it and be able to execute that plan. So then when you realize that you're dreaming, however it is that it happens, you'll remember like, okay, this is my plan. So I'm going to stay calm. I already know what I want to do. But I also tell people to just look around the dream first and see what's around you and really take it in. Like take a second to really feel it. Literally feel what's around you, like the textures, use all your senses to really ground into the dream. Like sometimes I'll like lick the floor and it's like concrete and it really tastes like concrete, like just realistically how I would expect concrete to taste like. And I just do things to really engage my senses, and that will make the dream more clear.
Engage your senses. Interesting. I have never heard that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then hopefully, you'll remember the dream task and you can try. And sometimes it takes me a few lucid dreams to try something that I want to do because it doesn't always work right away. So patience is a big thing with lucid dreaming.
Okay. That's good. All right. So then the next thing comes up of like what kinds of I've heard things like addressing the consciousness of the dream. You talking a lot about talking to characters. I would, what kind of questions do you think are fruitful? Have you found to be fruitful?
Yeah, so I have this list on my website. It's called The Ultimate List of Things to Do in a Lucid Dream, which is like all these ideas. But I've done things like you can call out to the dream itself, and like either ask it to show you something, show me my subconscious, show me myself as a child, show me my future, or I'll just call out to find somebody like a dream character or, somebody that I want to see, long lost friend or whatever it is that I want to do. So if there's no dream characters around, I'll just do that sometimes. But there's a lot of like commands that you can do, just scream out into the dream. One popular one is like higher self now, and just see what happens. Like you'll transform and don't have any expectations for what may or may not happen. It's just fun things to try.
Oh, well, it's kind of hard not to have expectations.
Right? Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what else? What's next?
So like in the dream or just for tips?
Oh, your choice.
Well, I mean, there's so many things you can do in the dream. Like you can do fun superpower stuff, fly around. Flying is very popular. It's cool because in a dream, when you're lucid, you can literally do whatever you want usually. It doesn't always work, but you can try.
Right. Well, there's dream sex, of course. That's always fun.
Exactly. That's one thing that everybody gets into lucid dreaming for. And then they realize there's so many more interesting things you could do. There's like spiritual, subconscious things you can work on. Work out problems with people, practice skills like we were saying earlier. Many fun things.
You mentioned one thing that I've been curious about is that it doesn't always work. And I've certainly had that experience. I have a number of my dreamers are lucid dreamers, and it's always very interesting to find out what doesn't work. Like if they want to fly, but then they can't get off the ground because there's power lines overhead, or they want to stop something from happening and it just gets worse and worse. And would you have any sense of what that's all about?
Yeah, a lot of it is like mental, like your expectations of what may or may not happen. So if you have limiting beliefs of like, oh, I can't fly, this is really hard, you might get stable and like lose your flight or fall or whatever. So a lot of the times the dream is thought responsive. But sometimes, the dream kind of has a mind of its own. Like there's this quote that I like that's you can control the ship, but not the sea. And I find that to be true with lucid dreaming because even as an experienced lucid dreamer, sometimes I'll try to do a dream task and it'll just do something else, or the dream will do something that I'm not really satisfied with or just not what I was trying to do. And I've just kind of learned to just, brush it off, try something else or try again. And that's why I said like sometimes it takes a few dreams for me to successfully be like, okay, I tried that and it was fun and I'm happy with that. So it just depends, you kind of sometimes have to go with the flow of the dream and just see what's there instead of trying to exert your ego on the dream just because you're lucid. So sometimes it's good to just be an observer and see what the dream has to show you. Right.
And the nice thing about lucidity is it definitely increases dream recall. You can remember a lot more details about the dreams that you're lucid in. I've certainly noticed that.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I'll be going through the dream, just like replaying it in my head so that I can remember it when I'm waking up. A lot of times I'll have very long lucid dreams that it gets hard to remember everything. So I kind of have to wake up, write something down, and then I'll go back into the dream. But a lot of times it'll be a false awakening where I think I woke up to write something down, but I didn't actually. I'm still in the dream.
Right.
So that's frustrating sometimes.
Right. I know that one. Okay. Well, I have a question here from Max in the studio with me.
Yeah, hi. So my question is about lucid daydreaming.
Yeah,
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Say more about that, Max. What do you mean?
So I too have like memories of dreaming from childhood and all this, and I think I was lucid back then because I remember changing my dreams to be more palatable to myself back then. I've since then sort of given up on trying to guide my dreams. But every time I think, is this a dream, I'm going like, oh, of course it is. So I'm pretty sure I'm there. But I do also ever since childhood, I've been an avid daydreamer. And we're not just talking about staring at the clouds, but going off into fantasy stuff. And I find that I do that lucidly.
Can you give an example, Max, or do you want to say a little more? So that's like controlling the daydream, or do you have a...
Yeah. I find it more easy and palatable for me to control a daydream than a nighttime dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's just really
curious.
Cool.
I was just curious if you had any experience with lucid daydreaming.
Yeah, I have. I'm also a big daydreamer, and I've also, have been meditating more the past couple years. So I've been able to enter like these altered states just through, literally being awake and just letting my mind wander. And a lot of times there'll be these big elaborate visions, but I'll be fully awake. And I've heard a lot of people talking about that too. So I think it's kind of like, I was saying earlier, different levels of consciousness that we can access. We don't have to be asleep to go on these elaborate dreamy journeys. So that's really cool, that you're able to do that. And I think it's very similar to dreaming when we're asleep.
Is that kind of like meditation even, to have these kind of elaborate visualizations?
I think it's definitely related because when we meditate, our mind kind of, we open ourselves up to receiving just information from the ether. So I think it's related for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that was just my question, is if this is something other people experience or not.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think you're alone on that by any means.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Max. So that kind of brings me to the idea of meditation. This is something that that I wanted to address as a kind of an alternate state of consciousness, and as something I know that you're interested in as well. And what do you recommend about that? What are the benefits of that? Just like what's up for you around meditation?
Yeah, it's been proven that frequent meditators or people that meditate more tend to be stronger lucid dreamers. So there is a connection there between that mental skill set, I guess, especially mindfulness meditation. And that's because like the reality check concept that I was talking about earlier, that's basically a little mini meditation that you do throughout your day to just be mindful of your surroundings and stop and smell the flowers, so to speak. And that same thought process is when you're lucid. You stop and you think, okay, what's going on? Is this a dream? Like, how real is this to me? And so I do a lot of that kind of mindfulness meditation, and I have noticed that it carries over. But even like there's so many different ways to meditate. There's breathwork meditation and different guided meditations and things like that. And I think that all of it is good. And I just tell people, find what works for you. Even if it's 1 minute, you don't have to sit in formal meditation for like an hour a day. Even if you do a few minutes or whatever, it's just good sometimes to, stop, think, clear your mind, or just observe your thoughts consciously, so to speak.
Well, maybe there's a connection, because that's another thing that I've had difficulty with over time is meditation. Maybe they're connected. The lucid dreaming and the meditation are both things that I don't take the time for it or something. It's like I tend to be pretty driven and pushing myself a lot of the time, and if I'm sitting there meditating, I'm like writing lists of things I could be doing very often, which is not so helpful.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's very hard. And that's why I kind of started just 1 minute. I'm literally like, okay, I can spare 1 or 2 minutes just sitting here and breathing. And I have all these thoughts come in, and it feels kind of pointless. Like I can't clear my mind. I don't think that's the point.
Oh, okay.
I think you just observe all the thoughts, let them go, and bring yourself back to center. And you just kind of have that kind of little moment to yourself, even if it's just 1 minute.
Well, 1 minute sounds doable. I think that could be. You would think I could find 1 minute some point during the day.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, we're all very busy, so I understand.
Right. Well, it isn't like I'm always on task all the time too, because I'm also like doing Sudoku puzzles and stuff like that. But I find that is just very much clears my mind. And there's other things like I do drumming with friends a couple times a month, and singing and exercise also clears my mind. But as you say, maybe the point is not to clear your mind. Let me think more about that. So maybe you want to say some more about mindfulness. Like that's not about, I've heard people say that mindfulness is like a terrible name for what the practice is, because it's not really about being focused on your mind. It's kind of more about mindlessness or something. I don't know. But tell me a little bit more about this, what people call mindfulness practice.
Yeah, I think it's more about being present and just observing what's around you, just taking it for what it is, you know. Even if you have all these thoughts in your head and you're stressed, which we all are, we have all these thoughts, 50,000 thoughts a day going through our head. And it's just about observing them. And then I think, you know, the more you do that, you realize like, okay, these thoughts are just coming and I'm separate and I'm choosing kind of which thoughts to entertain. But even things like you mentioned, like puzzles and working out and things like that, these are all different forms of meditation, in my opinion. Anything that kind of gets you in that zone where you're just like spiritual or having, you know, you're feeling more calm or, you know, that's beneficial to you, that's all good. You know, you can find what works for you. There's no one right or wrong way to do it. I think the overall arching message of mindfulness is just to just be more present, even if you take a second to really think, am I dreaming right now? You know, which is my favorite way of doing it.
Right. So maybe it's something about the variety of life, like getting a variety of consciousness during your waking state as well as in your dreaming state, that have moments of being focused and working and concentrating, and also moments of relaxation, moments where it's all about the physicality of the moment, something where it's all about images, maybe just having these different things. Maybe that's how to keep my brain young, keep my brain flexible.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's normal. You know, we're always fluctuating in our states of consciousness. So I just try to be as aware of it as I am. You know, if I'm feeling down or if my mind is all over the place, like I give myself grace and just try to be aware of where I'm at.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So this is, so we have maybe about 4 or 5 minutes left in the show, and I'm wondering if you have other topics that we haven't really hit on, because we've been pretty focused on the lucid dreaming meditation sort of realm. And would you have any other topics that you want to bring up at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things I could talk about, and kind of going aside from, you know, lucid dreaming, a lot of people, what do I want to say? Yeah, a lot of people ask me like, oh, is lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences, like, are they the same thing?
Touched into that, yes. That's
yeah,
good
exactly. And so I guess I could kind of talk about that.
Sure.
I think that they're kind of related, you know, they're cousins maybe. And I think there's so many ways to have out-of-body experience. That lucid dreaming maybe is just one type of out-of-body experience, is kind of the way I see it. And then you can fit like astral projection into that category, or remote viewing. And these are all basically different ways where, you know, we're able to see things from outside of our physical bodies. And I kind of believe that when we're dreaming, we can kind of leave our bodies in a way. So it's all related. And I think it just shows me that like we're more than our physical bodies. And I have had out of body experiences, like not through dreaming, but through like breath work practices and like meditation, where I'm like in this dream world and I kind of levitate and go somewhere mentally, you know? So that's always really puzzled my brain. And I think it's kind of like we've been just saying, it's all related. We don't have to be asleep to go on these astral adventures, but it just really shows me that there's more out there. And so, yeah, even like the daydreaming, you know, you know, we have this capability to see beyond our physical reality.
So is that something that you do consciously and deliberately, or or that it just happens, or maybe a little bit of both?
Maybe a little bit of both. So the out-of-body experiences that I've had, it's been like a handful of them. They've been kind of spontaneous, but they were induced by conscious things, such as I did a meditation, and then one was a breathwork practice, and one was like a hypnosis session. So, and they just happened. And it's always interesting because I vividly remember the point of like exiting my body and leaving my body, and it kind of felt like I was asleep, but I wasn't. So it's very hard to explain. Like I don't really have all the physical, like right words to put it together. But in one of them, I remember like kind of like my soul just like swishing through the top of my head, and I'm in this other room and I'm just watching it. Like I don't really have a body or anything. I'm just like watching this room with all these TV screens. And I've had similar dreams like this too, but this wasn't a dream. It was like a waking vision. And all these TV screens, and they all represented like different lifetimes of either my lives or different people, parallel lives, like different realities that you could go into. And I remember thinking like, oh wow, like I don't know where I am. And then I made the choice to come back. And then I remember like kind of going back through the same path and just swooshing back into my body. And it was kind of like one of those like visions, like in a movie or something. It was really weird. But I was fully awake the whole time.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you've also mentioned sleep paralysis. Is that kind of like related to this phenomenon? That's something that happens as you're falling asleep, right? Typically?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, because, when we're falling asleep, our body automatically paralyzes itself. We just don't usually notice, but, as a defense mechanism, so we don't act out our dreams. But when your mind is still awake, you find yourself in this in-between state. Like you're starting to transition over into the dream world or this other realm, other dimension, whatever you want to call it. But you're not fully transitioned, so you can feel your body. And you can feel that you're awake, but you can't move your body yet. And a lot of people get freaked out here. But if you practice this, you'll find that you can turn this sleep paralysis into a lucid dream, or you can roll out of your body from this, which a lot of people will consider just an OBE. And you can roll out of your body and walk around your house from the astral plane. And I've heard interesting stories of people finding lost items this way and things like that. So it's kind of like, the first station, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, we've got a lot of food for thought here, Amina. This has been an amazing conversation. This is Amina Mara of the Dream World podcast. And I also want to say that Amina will be leading a dream group at the conference for those of you who are going to the Netherlands, which is all about lucid dreaming. So it's going to be 4 mornings in a row in one of the dream groups, and you're welcome to attend her conference presentation there. So
Thank you.
Amina,
I'm so excited.
Exactly. So just maybe one last moment. Do you have any final encouragements for our listeners?
Yeah, just don't give up, whether it's dream work or whatever task that you're doing with lucid dreaming. Be patient and fall in love with all of your dreams, not just the lucid ones. And I'm here to support.
That's so nice. Fall in love with all of your dreams. Okay, Amina Mara at thedreamworldpodcast.com. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
All right, take care. All right. Thank you so much for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific at ksqd.org. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It spreads interest in dreaming when you subscribe, rate, and review. Just the algo. I am Catherine Bell. Find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. Email me at catherine@ksqd.org. That's KATHERINE @ksqd.org. Follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag The Dream Journal on Facebook and Instagram to find out about upcoming shows. I'd like to thank Rick Kleffel, engineer and music creator. You can find the ambient music at pandemia.com. Also Tony Rosamano for manning the phones. Intro and outro pieces are both by Mood Science. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.
In the old school, there's no fool like an old fool. Make the most of the moments you've got. Time to spend can never be bought. Make the most of the moments you've got. Time to spend can never be bought. On the high street in a low mood, walking slow with an attitude.